Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome to the show, Granty Venerable, our amazing guest. Excited he's here joining us as our podcast professional of the year, and excited to get to talk to him as a doctor, as a chemist, as a philanthropist, as a memoir writer, and so much more. He looks so handsome today. How was the holiday?
Oh, it was a lovely holiday.
Fill me in. What did you do with the family?
Very, very busy. Well, I played the Christmas prelude and postlude at my worship center and here in 29 Palms, and that always really re-energizes me and renews my whole attitude toward life. And Christmas is religiously speaking, as well as psychologically and physiologically speaking. And I thought I would, based upon events of the past week when toward renovating our new house so that we can use it in the way that we need to be able to use it. So there's still a lot of work ahead. But we have enterprising people. My brother is an architectural engineer, if not by formal training, by practical experience he is. And we've had an uncle and a cousin who had similar abilities. Yeah. So just supply him the material and he'll oversee how to put it together. So that's what's happening. We were supposed to get a grand storm last week.
Really? What type of storm is this in California?
There was an atmospheric river that came down from Seattle. Took about 2 weeks to get down to Southern California. So LA had some really major rain and some flooding. However, it did not reach the high desert where I am. It stayed away. It stayed in the mountains away from where we were. So we just got a little sprinkling. And the desert was bright and beautiful, but it was a little on the cold side. So it was a good way to really get ready for the new year. I thought I'd do something a little different today. And because it's something that is happening to a lot of people, namely the whole experience of employment and income generation, but mainly the uncertainty, the unpredictability. Yeah. And that really is what my 1980s were about. It was very sporadic, very spotty. And because I was in the academic world, it was different, because that wasn't really happening in the world of universities and colleges. That didn't really happen until much later, when we got into some serious recessions in the 1990s and then in the 2000s. But I had to develop some new game plans for how do you get through that. I mentioned a little on some previous podcasts about when I lost my academic position in one of the best universities in California. There were a lot of circumstances around that. However, I learned a lot because it happened. Namely, that I was let go without warning. However, the warnings were already around me. They were like signals, flashing yellow lights, but I ignored them. And I learned that that's something I never want to do again, is ignore signals, which I didn't realize were available to be seen. Wow. But I learned how to recognize other kinds of signals, such as opportunity signals. So that's what I want to get into right now and go to my memoir, Volume 4, which deals a lot with my career experiences. And it deals with what great chunks of the population are going through, not just in the
Yeah.
universities and colleges, but in private corporations, retail, banking, and this may provide some helpful thoughts and inspirations for people. So I'm going to go down to my outside screen here and hope my image stays and that doesn't disappear, but
Okay.
I'm going to try to click down here and see what I come up with.
Sure.
Oh, there it is. This is from page 29 in volume 4 of my ebook volumes of the memoir, Footprints in the Chaotic Unknown. And I'm looking here at a photo of two friends, Edith McKenna and Denise Caruso. Edith was a business partner of mine in the 1980s, and Denise was a former student from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo in the 70s. At that time, I was working for the water district of Oakland, California, and East Bay cities. And I was able to do that just by being alert and joining up, signing up with some employment agencies.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start on a paragraph there, and then I'm going to skip around to very relevant sections.
Sure.
So at that time, I was busy. This was in 1989 in the springtime. I was busy submitting applications to employment agencies and Silicon Valley firms, as well as performing consulting work with friends and various firms to see what kind of income I could develop there. And at the time, my spirits were soaring with hope. I had decided I needed to let go of the job with the water district called East Bay Municipal Utility. It was about the second or third biggest water delivery district in California. And I applied to take a leave from what's called East Bay MUD, East Bay Municipal Utilities Districts. However, the district secretary was not in a very negotiable mood. And she says, well, if you're going to take a leave, you might as well just resign.
Oh, wow.
And I said, okay, so I'll resign. And that's what I did. Although I was hopeful of landing a job that would utilize more of my innate abilities, skills, and intellect. Well, that job I was a word processor with East Bay MUD. And I was a skilled word processor. That's one thing professors learn how to do is word processing. So they could type their papers, their exams, their essays, their articles they were writing. So, however, in late June 1989, all promising leads had come to naught, and I hit a wall. And so that leads to the next part. I was utterly devastated. I tapped into my survival instincts. They instructed me to reach out to my mother's friend since childhood, Josephine Smith.
Okay.
Josephine was born in 1914 and passed away in 2011. But she had been one of my intellectual and spiritual confidants over the years. We had become close friends across the generation gap as we spoke the same language about the universals in life. She had taken an interest in my development and encouraged me since early youth and followed my progress in becoming a PhD scientist. Well, that's an interesting story on its own because As an educator, in the spirit of her chaplain grandfather, Colonel Allen Allensworth, she interested herself in innovative teaching, especially my teaching, and actually visited me in San Luis Obispo to enjoy sitting in on my first year general chemistry classes at Cal Poly.
Wow.
As a home economics graduate of UCLA around 1936, she had more than a passing knowledge of chemical science. So she was thrilled to sit in on my classes to see what new techniques I was using. And she was from one of the more academically adventurous spirits of her generation in the community. And and she actually took a leave from Los Angeles. She was, I guess, about 22, and she attended Spelman College for 1 year. That's one of the revered historically African-American women's colleges in Atlanta, Georgia. And after that, she became a school teacher in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I'm trying to dispatch this telephone call here.
It's okay. It happens.
I'm on the podcast. Well, anyway, she was developing herself as what you call a licensed neurolinguistic programmer, skilled at helping people to reprogram their brain-mind circuits to filter out negative self-beliefs.
Yep.
And this was designed to open the natural channels to success patterns. Actually, she happened to call me to catch up on my progress, but detected my depressive tone of voice.
Ooh.
And of course asked, what's up? So I unloaded the whole sordid tale.
Yeah.
So let me see. I'm trying to get this.
Okay.
This message. I can't do it right now. All right. I unloaded the whole sordid tale, and I said nobody wanted me on their faculties or corporate staffs. I was being passed over in favor of minority, Asian, Hispanic, and female applicants as California's new age approach to affirmative action, and it was a mess. Among males, Middle Easterners, Asians, and Asian Indians were in vogue. Black males were definitely out. Even highly qualified, experienced Ivy League class guys like me.
Yep.
The dreary lament poured from my mouth for another few minutes before Josephine cut me off with a word of sympathy. She recognized that my brain was spinning a protective, self-justifying script of self-pity. My psychic stuff was recycling.
Wow.
Throughout all my neural channels, and the stuff was not the issue or the point. Let's do an exercise, she gently commanded. Okay, I agreed. Let's see what I can do here. Oh, boy.
No worries. Take your time.
Hold on, Jill.
No
Hold
problem.
on. The challenges of technology here.
It's okay. It happens. All good. I can grab a water. Sure. Hold on. I'm going to grab a water since you're down there. Might as well, right? Thank you, hon. There we go. Good.
Okay, now let me get back to this.
No problem.
This section is called Mentally Visualizing the Pain.
Okay.
It was a variation of something I had been through before. Josephine asked a series of questions. Where is your pain and suffering level on a scale of 0 to 10? 0 being none and 10 being acute and unbearable.
Yep.
10, I quickly replied. Where in your body do you feel the pain?
Mm-hmm.
Pressure around my eyebrows, a constriction of my jaw and neck, a vacant emptiness in my chest, a tightness in my stomach. Now were you, she asked, on the pain scale? About 8.7, I said. If you
Ah,
could visualize some object causing the pain, what does it look like? Well, she said, is it solid, bulky, thin? What color, temperature, geometry, and texture is it? Is it moist or dry, soft or
mm-hmm.
hard, coarse or smooth? I responded with what I felt and saw in my imagination. Where's the pain reading now? She asked.
Mm-hmm.
6.5, I replied.
Ah,
What would you like to do with this thing you have described? She asked. I told her that I wanted to destroy it chemically.
oh, wow.
So I conjured up in my imagination the image of a swimming pool sized vat of concentrated hydrochloric acid and wasted little time in throwing the dreadful thing pain object into it. I watched with glee as it dissolved in about 10 seconds in a volcanic eruption of fire and steam. And then there was nothing left. Nothing at all. Where are you on the pain scale? She asked.
Mm-hmm.
0, I observed in a matter-of-fact tone.
Oh, wow.
At that, she said, good night and wished
Uh-huh.
me well. That was it. Now,
Wow.
I think that then the next part is about Lilith. Now, a lot of people have heard of Lilith. Lilith is the keeper of the protective artificial self that
Mm-hmm.
each of us possesses. And so this is about emotional programs for happiness.
Yeah.
After my conversation with Josephine, I was actually freed of the anxiety
Aw.
that had gripped me. However, absolutely nothing happened to solve my economic problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least not right away. Then I got a telephone call out of the blue from someone I had
Oh,
not
wow.
spoken to in years. As I have long known, nothing comes from out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
That phrase is mostly an illusion created by something I refer to as the protective Lilith mask. That's
Okay.
Lilith, until we are strong enough to take it off and let it go.
Yeah.
The mask is really a modification of our primary ego state, a virtual bundle of beliefs, memories, and thoughts. It is a hopefully temporary form of our true ego, often called the artificial or false self. It virtually fastens onto and covers over our
Okay.
inner authentic self
Oh, wow.
in early childhood to protect it as we try to absorb learned emotional programs for happiness,
Mm.
highlighted in the contemplative meditation teachings of Trappist monk Thomas Keating.
Wow.
These emotional programs are the socially acceptable should and should not rules and standards of thought
Yeah.
and behavior that authority figures and moral and religious traditions urge us to adopt to
Yeah.
find happiness.
Ah.
The problem arises when should or should not standards do not nurture, but
Yeah.
in fact begin to distort our inner self. In
Wow.
protecting the inner self, the Lilith ego mask is like a benign cyst.
Yeah.
That is a CYST cyst
Okay.
that protects us from any pain or discomfort caused by infectious microbes that get past the body's immune defenses.
Yeah.
Once the inner self has the strength and maturity to stand on its own identity, it no longer needs the protection of the Lilith mask
So
to
true.
shield us from pain. Ultimately, the inner pain discovers those paths for happiness uniquely relevant to our own inner self. Some paths may correspond to standard conventional programs, but most do not. The paths of the authentic self enable one to meet his or her own instinctual needs to live whole, healthy, and contented lives. Then here's where Abraham Maslow gets into the picture. His checklist of instinctual needs. From birth, the primary instinctual focus is on the need to feel safe and secure, the need for affection and esteem, and the need for some degree of power and control over our lived experience. However, the Lilith mask of the temporary artificial ego self, resulting from our valiant attempts to apply the standard emotional programs for happiness, is only a backup or temporary fix. It has to be discarded before adulthood, once it outlives whatever usefulness it may have had in trying to solve real-life challenges around getting affection, esteem, security, safety, and power and control over one's destiny. We mortals keep trying the same approaches to handling problems until we wake up, until we get woke, as they say. Until then, we continue making a dysfunctional mess as we let ourselves stay stuck in the same situations of life and career. But by the time we become young adults, we are so used to the artificial solutions dictated by the protective Lilith mask, whether or not they seem to work. We become more comfortable with them, and it becomes difficult to find workable solutions appropriate to our authentic self. And there it introduces mythical history of Lilith, which I'll just mention. An inscrutable character she is in ancient Hebraic and Middle Eastern mythology. She was Adam's first wife by tradition, who would not accept being in a subservient power and control socio-sexual position to her husband. Later, Lilith was seen as Satan's wife, or another of Satan's relatives, in the role of a protector of young children from abuse in a world indifferent to their needs and frustrations. But in her true psychologically protective role, it is not helpful in the long term for children to continue to be overprotected by Lilith, as they must grow up and leave their childhood Garden of Eden and individuate as responsible, self-regulating adults. They are indeed biologically programmed to become independent adults, old enough to function as members of a community. So does that sound familiar?
Doesn't it? Wow.
I think it's probably familiar to a lot of people.
For sure.
It seems that Lilith also got a bad rap from the males who created the myths, portraying her as an evil demon who kills babies.
Oh my goodness.
However, moving forward, returning to the phrase out of the blue, we see that it merely expressed, when I said it, my surprise that something had happened that my inner authentic self already envisioned as true, but which the Lilith mask, created for my perfection, pretended not to see. This means that phrases such as out of the blue are illusory cover-ups designed by the Lilith mask to relieve us from accountability for our fears and negative patterns of thinking, believing, feeling, and doing that always get the same results that we wish we could stop getting. Now, getting complete with Lilith, it is all part of self-fulfilling prophecy. The illusions and manipulations inherent in the Lilith mask are staples of political maneuvering for power and control, whether in Congress, national elections, the corporate world, university faculties, spiritual communities, or, get this, one's own family is our first tribal affiliation in life. But once our authentic inner self is strong enough to deal with the wounds and insults of the past, stemming from the frustrations and stresses of not fulfilling the three instinctual needs, we're able to manage whatever anxiety or pain arises from casting off the Lilith mask. I was about to learn that Josephine's long-distance telephone conversation had deleted one of the most important negative belief patterns upheld by my own Lilith mask. It was a false belief that I'd been hanging on to for many years. Once deleted, I walked away from my protective mask. And this gets us to my next paragraph. Really logical results my job searches could deliver. No longer could I blame my failure to achieve the desired results on the failure of affirmative action or whatever else. I never overtly blamed racism, even if doing so might make my results more palatable and temporarily less frustrating. And this gets to be a big point in American society today, even more than in the 1980s. But I opted to leave behind blaming the ism or phobia that is easiest to latch onto to avoid the challenges and discomforts of being my authentic self. This phenomenon of avoidance is also evidence in those individuals whose Lilith mask blames affirmative action for giving their place in the college admissions process to a less qualified minority applicant. It's one thing to express an opinion like that, and quite another to prove one's contention that that's really true. But the factors that go into reaching college admissions decisions, I know from experience, are complex. Everything in scruples can calm the anxiety of the Lilith mask's artificial ego of a rejected applicant. I lost the place here, just messing around with my cursing. What link are you talking about? I'm getting it here.
That's okay. All good.
I'm getting it here.
All right. No prob.
But this is all under the rubric of out of the blue. Goodness gracious. Yeah, there it is. I was about to learn, and I think I said that Josephine's long-distance phone conversation had deleted one of the most important negative belief patterns upheld by my Lilith mask. So that's what's happening here in the next sentence about those applicants for college admissions who are what's referred to as members of the majority group in society, they can get a clever lawyer and can calm their anxieties by filing a highly publicized lawsuit. And California's had a number of those. Sometimes a reversal of admissions rejection might result. But at the end of the day, does the applicant who filed the suit really fulfill their human quest for meaning or find hoped for happiness? That actually happened when the press on the East Coast looked at they interviewed a young man who was of a Chinese heritage who was rejected by Harvard, but an attorney found him and said, well, let's file a lawsuit against Harvard for discriminating against Asian applicants. What happened to that young man is he went on and applied to William and Mary, I think that was, or Williams College. That's where he went. He actually, after 4 years, turned out to be very, very happy going there. He was no longer sure he would have been that happy at Harvard. So those are little instructive facts. In a larger sense, what Josephine accomplished during our conversation enabled me to achieve a viscerally felt exercise in radical forgiveness, practical and dramatic form of revising the hurtful past in a way that really liberates one from the suspected source of insult or injury. That way, it no longer controls us. The emotional pain is dissolved. Now, what's going on there with forgiveness as a doctrine is given voice, of course, in most religions, but it is very seldom practiced at the gut level and therefore rarely achieves the liberation to move on with one's life. This is because most of us live in our logical heads, disconnected from our innermost aware feelings. In the Western mindset in particular, we tend to live in our logical, reasoning brains, where intellectualizing cannot possibly have any useful impact on our affective experiences in the real world. Jesus himself can be paraphrased as saying in one of his most inscrutable parables, if someone steals your valued stuff, just give the stealer more stuff to steal, thus challenging him to become an honest, that is, a whole person. If someone smacks you on the face, turn the other cheek so your assaulter can smack the other side. This scenario was dramatically depicted in the 2012 film sensation Les Miserables, an excerpt of which was shown in my Episcopal Church Sunday school class I was attending. Until then, this parable made no sense to my Western intellectual mindset, and it only served to push me further away from Christianity as something I could identify with as a formal religious commitment. However, we move further from this Sunday school class, and we get to a sidebar on a very interesting experience I had as a freshman at UCLA. I had to take the Wilshire Boulevard bus home as my friend who drove the carpool had to stay later and couldn't drive his carpool people home to Los Angeles, central Los Angeles. But anyway, I got on board at Westwood Boulevard, uh, where there were plenty of seats. But by the time the bus reached Beverly Hills, less than 2 miles east, there was standing room only. I noticed an elderly lady standing next to where I was seated on the aisle of the bus. As a properly raised 18-year-old, middle-class youth becoming a grown-up, I courteously got up to offer her my seat. She politely declined, saying she was getting off at the next stop, but thanked me anyway. At that instant, a late 20-something, casually dressed, baseball cap wearing, I'll call him a fellow member of my racial group, ducked into my seat and turned to fix me in a disapproving glare. He pointedly told me that is what I get for offering my seat to, and he made a disreputable reference to this woman whom I offered my seat to. This was fall 1960 in my racial Eden of Los Angeles. I was stunned at both his effrontery and evident problem with race, his own and others he perceived to be different from himself. I felt hurt, confused, and helpless. This experience was not in accordance with the personal life script I was learning to follow. So I repressed my hurt and wounded pride into my deep subconscious memory for storage, where my feelings were well protected by the Lilith mask of my artificial ego self. And there they stayed in psychological cyst form for 53 years until the aforementioned Sunday school in Atlanta. It was there that I realized that my misguided fellow countrymen had merely stolen my stuff. He had wounded my young man's pride
gosh.
As a boy in mid-struggle toward manhood. He had angered me. He had hurt my sense of righteousness, of being right and doing the right thing. I was upholding what I believed to be right. There was really nothing wrong with that. However, it was the upholding part, not understanding those moments when the wiser course would simply have been to let go. So I was learning to let go. I made the mistake of not giving him the rest of my righteous stuff to take with him. This did not mean letting go of my principles. It meant that the rest of my stuff was my stubbornly held belief in the act of upholding. And it did not matter what principles I thought I was upholding or defending, but the upholding and my upholding onto my upholding was at the expense of my inner congruence as a human being. That is what the 18-year-old boy within me could not realize as he tried his best to grow up in accordance with the standard culturally transmitted programs for happiness he had dutifully absorbed since infancy in his polite middle-class duty to offer his seat to a female elder he had engaged in but one more instance of the nascent man laboring to emerge from his 18-year-old boy self. And that led to lancing the cyst in this Sunday school class. It was really an amazing experience. And it really hit home when the two priests who were delivering this class were talking about upholding the wrong thing at the wrong time. I was finally able to tell myself that the young man on the bus who took my seat obviously needed it more than I did. But in the process, he also presented me with a golden opportunity to confront myself with how I uphold my righteousness about anything In this case, racial identity. American society in 1960, much like today, was pretty uptight about race in that final year of the 1950s. That's what I called an experience with radical forgiveness. I had to forgive that young man. The original wrong that I felt simply vanished, along with the dark night of my past. I reached the higher truth that the incident never even happened. I don't mean that the incident on the bus never took place, only that it happened in existential space and found itself transmitted into bits of cellular protein as my memory of it. But it does mean that the radical forgiveness I experienced, the deep, at the roots quality of forgiveness, was an act of creatively revising my willfully self-defeating memory belief from a distant past. I revised it in such a way that it no longer had any emotional hold on me. It was as though it never happened. And that gets to the point of this whole section of the memoir. Early in July 1989, a week after my conversation with Josephine that led to the radical forgiveness of my own self-defeating perceptions, an old friend, James Todd, called out of the blue. Surprisingly, he called from his apartment in Oakland, not far from where I lived in the Richmond, California marina. James was president of our senior class at Manual Arts High School. 29 years earlier, he tracked me down through classmates I had stayed in touch with over the years, through my annual Christmas letters. We had no idea we were living in close proximity. At his invitation, I went to dinner at his place on Lake Merritt in Oakland. I met his tall, glamorous, down-to-earth South Carolina-born wife, Gigi, and their smart young son, Mark. Jim and Gigi met right after he graduated from high school, while they were both stationed in the army in Germany. We needed to meet because it was our duty to, he reminded me, to plan our class of summer 1960 reunions. This would be the 30th. It was pursuant to our roles as the two highest ranking officers in the class. The funny thing is that I remember Jim being tall, perhaps 6 feet, while I was only 5 feet 5 inches. I felt certain I would have caught up with him. I did not. Jim had grown to 6 feet 5, but I had grown to 5 feet 10 and a half. So I realized we had both grown half a foot. We talked about our lives since high school days. Basically, we caught up on where we were in life. I had no job at the time, and he had a job teaching at San Francisco State University in the Department of African American Studies. Basically, he told me if I wanted to get back into academia, he could help me with that. And that's what happened. That's really what the point of this whole Lilith experience is about. I let go. I did some radical forgiveness on my past as I had met up with Jim Todd. And what it did, it opened the gates for miracles to happen, which could likely not have happened had I not talked to Josephine. And she talked me through that pain I was feeling, and I let it go. So the rest is really incidental here. The rest is, worthy of asking questions about. It's probably something that if every one in America could go through that radical forgiveness process, the whole landscape of their lives would change. The whole way they make decisions about perceived problems, economically, spiritually, morally, whatever, in this society would just shift. It would all go away. It would open a portal for a whole new set of events to occur, just as it did for me to wind up here in the desert and start an entirely new life experience after spending several decades already in my same body of my life.
Only a few decades, not many, not many. No, we're listening.
So that, yes. So I had plans. My sister and brother and I had plans. Our first order of business is to get to know one another again.
Yeah.
When the last time we really knew each other was in our early 20s. And so this is like a half century later.
Like, wait, yeah.
Or more than that. And we all have different personalities. So
yeah.
we're figuring out those things and what their language means when they use certain words, what my language means. And we're all very different.
Yeah.
I'm the intellectual artist type. My brother is the artist type, but he's an engineering type. My sister is the hard-nosed business type who's run banks and run businesses, knows how to set up businesses. So we make decisions based on different bases. So I think that's what we'll get used to next, is that Grant is this, he gets way out there in deep space with a lot of his storytelling and why he did this and that. But that's my job.
Yeah.
And I had to discover that was my job, is to continue in my educational role, whether it's in a classroom or on a podcast, to help my fellow human beings in our society
beautifully said,
be able to move through challenges they're trying to move through, some that I've been through already, that I had to invent. I had to figure out how to do it. But I'm still here, and I have a few health challenges I have to solve in the next couple of months.
Don't we
after
all?
My recent blood test, but I'm confident that will resolve, because basically I'm feeling better after the big move 8 months ago, which really was a lot of wear and tear on my body and my mind and my emotions. But I'm pretty relaxed about that now.
Yeah.
And I love this area of the world and getting reacquainted with Los Angeles, which is this huge megalopolis. It was just a small town when I was a child. By that, I mean, it was made up of about 200 little communities, and people all knew each other in those communities. And we would drive to the store, and it wouldn't be hard to find a place to park. We could talk to people we ran across on the street. We could stop in on neighbors. And so I think one reason I'm here is to say, this is what my memory reminds me things were like, that we can create in a new way now. Instead of letting technology get us frustrated, we can actually use it to create online communities where we fellow citizens can commune with one another, and across the earth, actually. So now how does all that make you feel, Jill?
amazing that you have
That
stories after stories after stories. And like,
is it.
I talk to you every week for the past how many months, and I learned something new. All part of the memoirs, correct? Which, by the way, I don't even think you've
Yeah,
actually promoted. This is all part of your work that you share a little bit about the
it
memoirs,
is.
where we find them.
We find them online right
Mm-hmm.
now until I can get the publisher to do
Yeah.
some hard copies that you can hold in your hands. But look on my website at
Mm-hmm.
grantvenerablephd.com. It's all lowercase. And even if you miss a few characters, it'll probably put the correct name up there on the screen. And it presents a lot of videos and interviews I had. There's a picture of me in
Ah.
Times Square that was projected, a few years ago now. And it showed it was that big bulletin board, electronic, that overlooks Times Square.
Oh.
And there I was, my photograph was up there, advertising who I was, who I am. And
Hmm.
so this is the marketing time of my life. So that's a little different. But I was able to do them in more because I kept so many journals,
Yeah.
mainly on calendars. I keep a little 5x7 week at a glance calendar,
Aw.
and every appointment I've had since I was in the ninth grade is in that little calendar. And now I've been keeping full page binder journals about my main visits and telephone calls and all of that, and achievements, or I would not have been able to do
Of course not.
the book as complete as it is.
Ah. Well, sum up today for the new year. What do you want to leave with everyone for today?
I want to leave thoughts for the new year
Sure.
and to realize it is an opportunity to open the portals.
Sure is.
See,
Yeah.
that's why the symbolism is in January,
Mm-hmm.
named after the mythical person Janus, who looks in two different opposite directions. She is a two-headed image goddess, and that's what January does. Is it holds the past together with the future in a present. And that's a more important idea than we can imagine, because quantum physics is beginning to discover why it's probably the future that is
Yeah.
creating our daily experience in the present. Because the electromagnetic forces that actually are pulling what has already happened in the future
Mm-hmm.
and pulls us through this nexus called January 1st and gets us into January 2nd, which is our new present. So it's really rearranging our view of past, present,
Absolutely.
and future.
Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us. How can we contact you, darling?
Um, you can always use VENTWO at AOL.com and refer to Venerable Memoir. And then I'll know why you're contacting me, at least what our point of contact is. So
And what are you doing for the new year? Anything exciting?
VENTWO at AOL.
Yep.
No, nothing in particular. Oh, I
Okay.
know what I'm doing. It's what I have to do every year. I reconcile all of my financial transactions through
Oh,
from my
good.
bank and get a summary done that I can send my accountant so I can pay my taxes or get my tax refunds, whichever is happening. And so, yeah, that's the big plan.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really pleasure to have you here, and we'll talk again in the new year. Enjoy. Thank you so much, Grant.
Okay.
All right. Enjoy. Bye.
Okay.
Happy New
Thank
Year,
you, Jill.
everyone. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn those earrings today. I like those earrings. Gabby has those awesome earrings. I need to ask her where she got those, but that's just what she would want me to do. I'll have Michaela ask her for me.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Yeah, but then Michaela will be like, why don't you just ask her yourself? That's just like Michaela.
Sarah, buckle up.
Michaela's such a great name. I wish I was called Michaela. There's like a dozen Sarahs in my class.
Hey, we're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I forget sometimes because my brain is like busy, you know? I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
Sometimes it can be tough to get through to your kids, but it's not impossible. Always make sure they're wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Remember, you have the keys, you have the power. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.